Trial Tuesday once again. We know the internet is a great resource, but it can also lead to a lot of trouble. Attorney and mixmaster David Aylor joins us right now with an interesting story of a YouTube rap video that went a bit too far. Counselor, what is this all about?
Well, it's ultimately about threatening the lives of public officials, and that was, what this individual found himself in trouble for, because essentially here locally in Clarendon County, there was a gentleman that had been on trial for some various criminal activities, and thereafter the trial and around the period that it was going on, he actually created a rap video, and it was on YouTube, and specifically mentioned the name of one of the judges involved, and then also the prosecutor at that time.
So where does the free speech angle of this come in? Is something that you can do in a YouTube video when you're obviously, if you're making a threat, this is to kind of get that street cred that people talk about?
Right.
Where is that fine line?
First of all, I want to say you have street cred.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Essentially, that's the question. And the question actually in this situation went to the jury, and he was found not guilty. You have to really look at it to determine whether or not it would be protected by the First Amendment. And these, the words would not be considered violent or fighting words that often would not be. But in this situation particularly, his lawyer was able to argue that it was part of the rhyme and that was, really a metaphor for something else, and that he, in fact, wasn't making real threats on these individuals.
But I mean, even the fact that it went this far, it went to a jury trial, should teach people at home that even if you're thinking you're making a joke on the internet, people are going to see it. And people are eventually going to notice, and eventually it's going to come back on you.
Right. I mean, the main issue is that people don't really consider that a lot of times when they're doing these things, particularly from an emotional standpoint, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. When you put actual people's names in, particularly if they're public figures, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny, and we're starting to see a lot more issues. For the younger folks, a lot of bullying issues, of course, on the internet, mentioning people's specific names. And for adults, you're seeing criminal things like this, as well as other civil issues, slander, things like that, because, again, it's highly emotionally driven, and that usually doesn't lead to a lot of logic in what people are posting.
Indeed. Another case here locally recently, names weren't used, but it could be inferred on Twitter that one person was talking about another public figure. Can you level charges against that person even though no names were used in 140 characters or less?
That's going to be difficult. You really have got to get pretty specific involving exactly who you're talking about, or be able to prove who you're talking about. Then beyond that, show the damages, which oftentimes that's pretty obvious just depending on what they're actually saying about the person. But it really comes down to just people sort of reacting quickly and not really determining what they're going to put, or should they put that information on the internet.
That's what it is. I mean, a great rule of thumb here is wait a minute and a half and see if you really have the same emotions as you were going to tweet or Facebook or something like that, because oftentimes judgment comes over and you say, yeah, maybe I shouldn't tweet that. Maybe I shouldn't put that on
That's
Facebook.
the best thing, and I always tell a lot of people to avoid conflicts like this. Think about when you write an email. That's a lesson we all learned pretty early on. Using email, if you're upset or angry or even respond to someone, you need to take a little time before you actually do that, because the email and tone can come across negatively. It's the same thing, but times 10 with things like Facebook, Twitter. You're posting them right there from your phone, and it can get dangerous, whether it be civil issues or potential criminal cases.
People are going to find out, and that's the bottom line
and
here.
It doesn't go
someone
away.
Is going to know somebody that there's an electronic record there all the time.
Yeah, and people try to delete things. We hear about different things that are said, and their professor recently regarding the NRA made a very controversial statement out of Kansas State. That went, national. He's now been suspended. I mean, those type of things are people's maybe true feelings and emotional reactions, but maybe not always the best idea to put them out there.
I think you're right about that. Be careful what you do on the internet, and don't make rap videos unless you're working with this guy. Counselor,
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Really do appreciate it. #1 in the hood, G. Stay with us. We're right back with more Low Country Live after this.